Hello again, welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. Paul Schrimpf and Eric Sfiligoj back.
At least for this week.
For a week, and it'll be a couple of weeks without us. We're going to be scattered to the winds, so to speak.
Yeah, I know. Next week I'll be heading to a John Deere event and also the annual Maggie Show taking place in Bloomington, Illinois.
I'm going to do the Saskatchewan tour. I can't wait.
That ought to be fun.
That'll be fun. I love Canada. Love to get out and see some new places I haven't been to before. So, and I have a little extra time built in, so I kind of just drive around and see some of these iconic towns that I've always seen on the map when I was a kid, but never got a chance to visit.
We'll expect pictures, Paul.
I will.
All of us out there.
There'll be plenty of pictures.
And maybe you can find an abandoned town, maybe in Saskatchewan.
I think there might be.
There may be. All right.
Don't arrest me.
We'll have to watch for that. Yeah, actually, Paul and I are doing our annual visits to the Environmental Respect Award winners. I'll be in Missouri myself this week to visit one of the winners there, and Paul is going to be visiting his in Saskatchewan. And we had another pair of winners, one in North Carolina and one in Idaho, that will be getting their visits as well.
Always a good time.
Yes.
Always a good time. So yeah, anything else before we get into Mr. Gloom and Doom, or are you going to be?
We do have a little bit of good news, Paul. I don't know if you saw this story or not, but last week, I guess, a letter was sent out from the EPA basically saying that they will no longer accept warning labels for glyphosate, saying that it is a potential cancer-causing agent. Paul, this is aimed right at the Proposition 65 legislation in California, which the note did call out by name, saying that they will not let federal policy be dictated by California Proposition 65, and that folks who have labels that currently have warnings on them have 90 days to resubmit for new labels that don't have a warning label. So this is a little bit of a win for a herbicide that's having a rough time recently in the news.
Well, that kind of alludes to a little bit about what I'm writing my editorial about. But
Really?
Seriously, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, really.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a lot of it's about alluding back to past times when we really had strong leadership, through the Food Quality Protection Act. We had really strong leadership at USDA and EPA. And by the time we came out with a lot of the re-registration of products, I mean, not everybody was happy, but it was actually a process where everyone got engaged and got to say something.
Right.
But nobody dictated the entire conversation, which, you can only have that if you have strong leadership at the top that's willing to stand up to, frankly, both the industry and to the environmental groups and say, we're going to make these science-based decisions and you're all going to have to live with them. And unless we have that, we're all treading water. And so hopefully this is a step forward in making sure we have strong federal decision-making based on science so that we can move these things forward.
Yep, fingers crossed. Like I said, we've been waiting for the past couple of months for some good news, if you will, for glyphosate and its proponents. So this, I guess, would qualify.
You bet.
Yeah. So another thing to talk about, Paul, of course, I know we've been talking about how so many acres did not get planted during the spring because it was a little too wet, a little too cold in certain parts of the country. I know here in Ohio, I've seen some of the fields by my house. I got to tell you, Paul, the soybean looks really sad. I saw one field that looked decent, but most of it is way behind. If they harvest before November 1st, I'm going to be shocked. But we did find out from USDA some planting numbers. We had 90 million acres of corn planted and 75.9 million acres of soybean planted. So those were the final numbers as of the end of June, according to the USDA figures. Paul, that means corn was kind of where they expected it was going to be, around 90 million, but soybean was off. I think the anticipation was about 86 million acres, so about 9 million down. Yeah,
we took a little trip to Southwest PA, and actually some of the acres out there don't look too bad. I was kind of shocked at how tall the corn almost looked Iowa-ish.
Yeah, Iowa-ish.
Bizarro. Even the stuff that was planted in the Amish. Frankly, the Amish acres look fantastic. But boy, it's everywhere else. Everywhere else, it's a big challenge, and we hear all about the soybean problem. See a lot about it in Twitter, and I don't know. It just. So there's some more planting season to go, but it doesn't look good.
Well, the one thing I know, I was talking to a bunch of the retailers about the fall fertility outlook, and a lot of them are saying that, you know, with such a late harvest going on, they can anticipate a situation where you see a combine in the field, and shortly behind it will be a spreader putting down fertilizer for fall application. So yeah, they may be happening. Those two things may be happening simultaneously this year, which is something we normally don't see.
Absolutely. So what else we got? Anything else interesting going on?
The only other thing is I know that a couple of statistics have been coming out recently, I believe, by the Association of Equipment Manufacturers regarding some of the equipment numbers not looking so good for our equipment makers around the country. And I guess some of the bad data coming out there, the negative data, being supported by the equipment dealers themselves. I have a story here. It's talking about one John Deere dealer that said that through the first half of the year, their equipment sales were off. This is for big equipment, 15%, and that the early orders for spring of 2020 were off about 25% from what they normally are. So, again, Paul, a rough road ahead for the equipment dealers here in 2019 going into 20.
Well, it's tough to figure out marketing because a lot of this is artificial. You know, the trade wars and tariffs and everything else. I mean, it
could change very quickly if we get a trade deal.
You just never know. So, you know, we talk to these guys about marketing all the time, but it's hard to even make a prediction. I think people are kind of reeling it in a little bit until they get a sense for where it's headed.
Well, and the one thing I'll say, I know I had this discussion with someone the other day. I remember, you know, I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be going to the Maggie show. I do remember it was, I think, about 3-4 years ago, there was a particularly slow year for equipment sales. And it seemed like in that year, the equipment makers took a little of a proactive approach and started introducing new products to the marketplace to see if they could kickstart some of the sales. I remember that year, I believe there were about 16 or 17 products that had the starburst, sorry, Paul, with the word new on them at the booths. So maybe, just maybe, and may not see that this year in the 2019 Maggie, but by the 2020 show, perhaps.
Interesting. Well, one other thing to note, I saw something come across the desk this week that John Demerly, if that name sounds familiar, he was on our PACE Council representing Corteva, and before that Dow, joined Commoditag.
Oh,
so yet another salvo in the e-commerce wars, so to speak. I think, you know, Commoditag is in it for the long haul. They've made a major hire to try and, I guess, manage through and take it to the next level. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, congratulations to John, and yet you know, more evidence that e-commerce and e-business in the retail ranks is going to continue to increase.
Yes, and it, just as a little a teaser, if you folks out there watching us are interested in this topic, in our October 2019 issue, we'll be looking again at the distribution channel, and Paul will probably be working on an update when it comes to ag retailers that are looking at e-commerce like Commoditag.
You bet. Say controversial things because we like that. The hotter the better. Hot takes.
All right.
Well, that's it for this issue of CropLife Retail Week. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
You did it. You ended it. Perfect.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below.
Your feedback is important to us. We'll try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.